Hey everyone, my name is Steven and welcome back to the Storytime channel. Without wasting any time, let's get into our stories of the day. Just fix it. I was in the military and until re-enlistment, I was a mechanic. Not a very good one, but I could change parts with the best of them. This happened over 20 years ago. I did clean up the language quite a bit, but I think you will enjoy it. Our platoon mostly had very good leaders. But we did have one douche staff sergeant who was the absolute worst. When he arrived, we already had a motor sergeant and a platoon sergeant, both of whom outranked him. So he was assigned the job of managing our vehicle inspections. There were daily, weekly, monthly, etc. inspections that had to be performed. Not a difficult job, but one they assigned him to get him out of the offices since he didn't have anything else to do and nobody really liked him. Every Monday, the vehicle operators from the other platoons would come to the motor pool to do the weekly inspection. The mechanics were assigned a set of vehicles to cover. We would usually work the repairs that could be done immediately, like replacing lights or tightening loose bolts. Then during the week, we would make all of the other repairs. And when we were done, typically Friday, we would sit down to order all the parts that we didn't have in supply. I was working when one of the operators placed his inspection sheet on my clipboard and left. When I looked at the paperwork, I noticed that his sheet listed a needed repair that was considered a deadline deficiency, a repair that must be performed prior to operating the vehicle per regulations. I informed the motor sergeant and he said that particular repair wasn't critical and nobody was really certain why it was considered to be a deadline. He also said that he would notify the platoon using it and would ask them to bring it back when it was convenient. Usually, if a deadline vehicle were being operated, we would send the wrecker out to retrieve it. So I do my repairs on Tuesday and Wednesday and the vehicle still wasn't back. My work was very light that particular week and I was done with all the repairs by lunch on Wednesday. So I sat down to order my parts. In walks douche sergeant. He instantly begins berating me for being lazy. He then asks if my repairs are made. I tell him that all the ones I could make are, and he asks for the paperwork, which he flips through quickly. He notices the one truck and the conversation goes like this. "Is this repair complete? There's nothing written here." "No, but..." "No buts. Go out to the lot and fix it. I don't want you doing anything else until it's done." "Yes, Sergeant." Our motor pool has assigned spots for each vehicle. I look through the manual for the size bolts for the particular part, grab the appropriate wrenches and headed out. I laid down in the vehicle's assigned spot, raised my wrenches and pretended to turn them. I lay there for an hour and a half wrenching air. Operators and mechanics noticed me but didn't say anything. Several had heard the conversation and laughed a bit. The motor sergeant was walking the lot, doing his thing, when he noticed me laying there. The look on his face was priceless. He either thought I had finally cracked, I was a bit high-strung those days, or that maybe I had heat exhaustion. So he walks over and I could see the gears in his head spinning and he asks, after a minute of thought, what I was doing. I told him I was making the repair to this vehicle, which only added to the confused look on his face. And then he asks, in a tone of voice reserved for the mentally impaired, if I was aware that the vehicle wasn't there. So I replied, "I know this, Sergeant, and you know this." But douche sergeant does not want to hear any buts. He only wants me out in this lot until this repair is complete. Edit. Douche sergeant did eventually get in trouble, just not for this. He did have several equal opportunity complaints for racism that eventually got him. But the motor sergeant knew me well. We had been deployed for a year, knew the situation, and he just laughed and told me to go back to work. He also said that I should have informed him of the situation so it could be resolved in a more productive manner. I quoted something military men have been told for a long time. Follow the last order given. I have quite a few stories with this guy. I wouldn't want to be the one stirring up trouble by going to somebody else and trying to mix stuff up, but I do agree with the motor sergeant here in saying that he should have gone to him. If you were in OP's shoes and drill sergeant told you no buts, go out to the lot and fix it, what would you do? Let me know your course of action in the comments below. Put on the boot. While in the military, I worked in the motor pool. We had a new staff sergeant come in, but we already had a motor sergeant and platoon sergeant, and he was the lowest ranking of the three, so he was relegated to a lower level task in the platoon. He was a raging douche and most of the enlisted men hated him. I helped a buddy move to a new barracks one night after work and twisted my ankle coming down the stairs. It hurt, but I didn't think much of it. We had some drinks afterwards and everything was fine. The morning though, that was a whole nother can of worms. I woke and couldn't put pressure on my ankle. When I looked down, it was swollen like a cantaloupe. No problem. I dressed in my uniform and carried my boot to formation. Due sergeant saw me coming. He asked why I wasn't in uniform, motioning to the boot. I informed him of the situation and told him that I had to go to sick call. He said that it didn't matter. I had to be in uniform for formation. I showed him the ankle, but he's a douche, so that meant little. He told me to put it on or he'd have me written up for disobeying. So I put that boot on. I had to put my toes in, then grab the top of the boot and slam the foot on the ground several times to get it in. It's been a while, but I vaguely remember there being a few tears. Only vaguely though. And only a few if you believe that. When I get to the hospital, the doctor, Colonel Fulbird, proceeds to let me know how stupid putting the boot on was in no uncertain terms. His language was colorful to say the least. Then he asked why I could be so stupid and I informed him that I was threatened with Article 15. For a minor offense, an Article 15 is given instead of a full judicial hearing, but it can still demote you or punish you in other ways, if I did not comply. He asked who ordered me to do this, so I told him. I won't say gleefully, but it was with much glee. In a flash, he was on the phone. That colorful language was now directed at someone else. It was a sight to behold, but this is not the malicious compliance. So I was given a profile, a doctor's note specifying what you can and can't do because of medical issues. That said, I must wear an air cast, use crutches, and that I could not do physical training or stand for more than 10 minutes at a time. Returning from the hospital after lunch, I stopped at the barracks and grabbed a running shoe for that foot and returned to the motor pool. Douche saw me coming. Again. Man, was he out to get me. He met me at the gate and asked for my profile, which I gave him. He then told me that the profile did not specify that I could wear running shoes. I informed him that it did state that I had to wear the air cast and it would not fit in the boot. He didn't want to hear it. But then I told him he was welcome to call the colonel to clarify. He declined but stated I could not wear that shoe. I can certainly do that. I took the shoe off and hobbled to the smoking area just outside the motor pool and sat there for 3 hours. My squad leader, Sergeant Ski, came looking for me eventually, mainly because others had complained that I was sitting in the smoking area for 3 hours. He asked what happened and I told him. He then asked why I didn't come in the motor pool. Sorry, Sergeant, regulations prevent me from entering the motor pool without footwear. Since I cannot wear this shoe because my profile doesn't specify and I can't wear the boot over the air cast, looks like I'm on a 6 to 8 week smoke break. Ski was very unhappy and told me that I should have informed him of the situation, back before cell phones. And I replied that that would have required me entering the motor pool without the footwear. Cannot do it. Sorry. He told me to put on the shoe and head inside. He'd deal with it. The platoon sergeant tore him a new one. Again. 3 hour break and the douche gets his chewing. Good deal for me. Play by the rules. Douche sergeant told him how it was. Well, then I can't go in there. Kudos to OP on that one. Iron the uniform. Again, 20 plus years old, same story as before. One Friday afternoon, just before final formation, Douche decided to inspect our uniforms. After working all day in them, he expected the uniform to be ironed and the boots shiny. I only ever had my uniform pressed for big occasions, parades and such. According to the regs, a brush shine is all that is required, and the uniform did not require it to be pressed, just wrinkle free. 30 minutes in a dryer in the morning was my philosophy. On this day, Douche would not be denied. He berated us and was just a general douche. I only repeated what the regulation said about the uniform. Eventually, the motor sergeant stepped in and asked him to step away. He then tells us that we should press our uniforms and shine our boots highly for Monday morning formation, and that he would get Douche off our backs. Pig agreed. Me, not so much. I told him that I don't know how to iron, to which he replied that I could send it to the cleaners to have it pressed. I argued the point for a bit, but capitulated. He was a good guy. So I complied. Sunday night, I sprayed Stay Flow concentrated starch on the uniform, completely soaking it and then letting it dry. After it dried, I tossed it on the floor, straightened it a bit, then ironed it. Any wrinkles that were left in the uniform were ironed nice and crisp. In the morning, I woke early and started to high shine my boots. If the boot hadn't been shined like that, it can take a while. When I dressed, I had one really shiny boot. We showed up to formation a little early, 15 minutes or so. Single highly shined boot under those crisp wrinkles. There was a ton of laughter when I showed up, but I walked to my platoon, head high, chest out. My uniform was ironed. My sergeants were not so amused. You could practically see the steam coming off of Douche's head. It was great. The motor sergeant was not amused either. He asked why I hadn't sent it to the cleaner, remembering what I said about not knowing how to iron. I told him that I wasn't spending my paycheck to make Douche happy. My squad leader was practically in a panic. He rushed over and asked if I had another presentable uniform, which I did. He told me to get it on and return to formation before it starts. Okie dokie. The joke was on me though. While Douche was just being douchey about it, the motor sergeant had a reason that he was asking for my uniform to be done up. I was getting promoted that morning. When the captain pinned my rank on, he did say, jokingly, he saw my uniform earlier and wasn't really sure that it was the right time for this. To which I replied, I told them, sir, that I did not know how to iron. Maybe next time they'll believe me. They never did ask me to press my uniform again though. I don't know too much about the military, but I was under the impression that they had a whole thing about taking care of your uniforms, so it's kind of surprising to hear that they didn't know how to iron. Don't pee in the floor. Alright, so I love this story. And if you have ever worked in healthcare, you understand that finding humor in weird situations is a must. I was 19 working at my first nursing home. I loved the lockdown unit, which held the escapees and dementia patients as well as some crazies. During this particular graveyard shift, we were doing our first round and checking and cleaning up patients who needed it. I go to check the malicious compliance character of this story. Let's call him Mike, and step around the side of his bed. My shoe immediately splashes and I look down to see a puddle of urine in the floor. Now, this man was fairly with it. I asked him what the deal was and he explained that he randomly decided to pee on the wall. So I laugh, clean it up, and tell him not to pee on the floor anymore. He thought it was comical. Later that night, during the last round, I go to check on Mike again. I walk into the dark room and peep around the side of the bed where the last incident occurred. I was pleasantly surprised that there was no puddle on the floor. I go back around to the other side of the bed to turn the light on. That's when I noticed a large pile of number 2 on the floor that I narrowly missed with my foot. I freaked and figured out he had actually got out of the bed, did number 2 on the floor, and got back in bed all casual-like. I asked Mike why in the world would he do something like that, and he responded by saying, "You only told me I couldn't pee on the floor." I don't know if they're just getting bored, but this sounds like an incredibly odd way of entertaining yourself. Want me to shave? Cool. This is pretty tame compared to a lot of stuff here, but I find it amusing. Backstory. Ever since I could, I've had a beard that I love. It's not big or bushy, and I trim it and style it so that it's always clean and pretty short. I've got a kinda chubby face, so the angles make my chin and jaw look amazing. I'm pretty good about maintaining it, but between work and school the last week, I haven't had much of a chance to get out my clippers. So I'm cuddling with my wife last night and she starts pushing me away and complaining that I should just get rid of it because it keeps stabbing her. She called me Splinter Beard, which for D&D friends I'm totally stealing as a name for a warforged pirate. She likes it normally, but for some reason just demanded it be gone this time. So then she drops this line. Just go shave everything except your hair and eyebrows. Poor choice of words. I'm sure you all know where this is heading. So first I shave my face. It's been a while since I've seen my chin and I look like an alien. Whatever, it'll come back. Next, I flip on the shower and grab my razor and a whole extra case of blades. I'm a hairy dude, so this could take a while. About 45 minutes in, I hear the shower curtain open and my wife screams, "What are you doing?" By this point, I'm halfway done with my second thigh. I told her I was doing what she asked. The look on her face was so much better than I expected. She told me not to do any more, so I finished up the leg and got out. Now she's mad because apparently my legs are softer than hers. Still not sure how to take that, but her look of shock was awesome. I'd say that's a power move if anything. With that said, that's all the stories we have for today. So what I want to know is which of these stories was your personal favorite and why? Let me know in the comments below. And thank you all so much for watching and listening to the Storytime channel. And if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing and turning on that notification bell so you'll never miss an upcoming video. Thank you all again for watching and listening to the Storytime channel.